Welcome to the deep dive. When you pick up a video game, maybe you're lost in this incredible world. Have you ever stopped to think about, all the people involved?
All the different roles that have to come together just to make that experience happen.
Exactly. So today, we're pulling back the curtain a bit on one of those really pivotal roles,
Mm.
the video game producer.
And we're getting the inside scoop from someone who's actually lived it. They shared their experiences over on this great blog, Retrieving Thoughts.
Yeah, it's a fantastic resource.
It really is. And the title producer, it gets thrown around a lot, doesn't it? Not just in games.
True, across different creative fields. And I bet for a lot of you listening, maybe you're gamers, maybe just curious, the big question is probably, okay, but what does a video game producer actually do all day?
Especially because the gaming world itself is so, well, huge and varied.
Right. And our guide today, the author behind Retrieving Thoughts, they didn't just fall into this role. Their journey's pretty fascinating.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, they started at a smaller company, and get this, they were juggling everything. Legal consultant stuff, business development, project management,
Wow.
even dabbling in game design, UX, writing, sound creation. I mean, talk about a baptism by fire.
That kind of diverse background is actually pretty common and super valuable,
You think so?
definitely. It helps build what they call a T-shaped person, someone with a broad understanding across lots of areas,
Right, the top of the T.
but then a really deep expertise in one core thing. In this case, it sounds like management, guiding teams.
Yeah, exactly. That deep skill. It gives them this unique view on the challenges each different part of the team faces. Design, coding, art.
Which brings us right to why we're digging into this today.
Hmm.
As our source points out, that term producer, it can be surprisingly fuzzy,
It really can. Depending on the studio, it might mean something closer to a project manager.
or maybe more like a product manager, focused on the player experience.
Or even someone who comes from a game design or finance background originally.
So our mission for this deep dive is to try and cut through that fog.
Hmm.
Let's really understand the core job, the skills you need, the day-to-day reality of being a producer, from a practical angle.
Okay, let's do it. So, starting right at the core. What's the fundamental job? According to our source, what's the producer really there for?
Well, if you boil it right down, it's about support, being the ultimate support system for the development teams.
Supporting the teams.
Yeah.
How?
Their main goal is to empower those teams to actually deliver the game on time, within budget.
The classic constraints.
Right. But here's a really crucial point they make. It's not just about hitting milestones. It's also about making sure the team itself is healthy and functional.
Ah, so team well-being is part of the producer's job description.
Absolutely.
Right.
The key consideration, it's not just about the spreadsheets.
That's a really important distinction. And for a lot of modern games, like these games as a service things,
Mhm.
that support doesn't just stop at launch, does it?
Not at all. The producer's role often stretches way beyond that.
Yeah.
Ongoing development updates,
Mm-hmm.
it continues long after release day.
So it's like end-to-end ownership then.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And what really strikes me is the constant, shifting focus needed. 1 minute you're thinking big picture, strategy, long-term goals for the game.
Having the vision.
And the next, you're diving right into the weeds, helping the team fix some super specific technical bug that's blocking everything.
That constant zoom in, zoom out, which naturally leads to a question a lot of people probably have. You listening might be thinking this right now.
Yeah.
How does this differ from a project manager? I mean, on the surface, they sound kind of similar, don't they?
They really do. And our source at Retrieving Thoughts, they acknowledge that there are definite overlaps.
Okay.
Both roles worry about time, scope, budget, those core things.
No.
But the key difference, they say, is the primary focus.
Focus. How so?
Think of it like this. Project managers are often the masters of process, making sure schedules work, resources line up efficiently, the mechanics of it.
Okay, process focus, got it. So the producer.
The producer, they argue, takes a much more integrated role. They're deep in both the creative and the operational stuff.
Ah,
They're not just tracking tasks on a chart. They're actively involved in shaping the game's vision itself, making sure design, code, art, even marketing, it's all pulling in the same direction.
towards that single vision.
Exactly. The producer is kind of like this vital bridge
A bridge between.
between the technical teams and the creative teams. They need to speak both languages, facilitate understanding, make sure everyone's aiming for the same player experience.
Right, that makes sense. So given how multifaceted and, frankly, demanding this role sounds,
Hmm.
what's the appeal? Why would someone actually want to be a video game producer? What's the reward?
Our source gives some really interesting reasons. A big one is just the satisfaction you get from enabling your team.
Enabling them how?
By taking on all the planning, the management headaches, the producer lets the designers, the programmers, the artists really focus on what they love, actually making the game.
I can see how that would boost morale. And probably the quality, too.
Definitely. And then there's that almost like magical moment when an idea goes from just being on paper.
To something you can actually play.
Yeah. Our source describes it beautifully, like inventing an incredible machine on paper and then watching it come to life. That must feel amazing.
That sense of creation, yeah. Seeing something tangible emerge.
And it's not just the big moments. They also mention enjoying the problem-solving aspect, especially fixing communication issues between different groups.
The people puzzles.
Right. Plus, the role itself is always changing with the industry, so there's constant learning, growing, professionally and personally.
And I suppose being at the center of things, you have a real influence on the final game
Mm-hmm.
and the company's success.
Absolutely. That sense of ownership and impact seems like a huge motivator.
Okay, but to handle all that, you need the right toolkit. What kind of skills are we talking about? What does a producer absolutely need?
Well, the list is pretty long, as you might expect. Top of the list, communication has to be effective. You're talking to so many different people constantly.
Makes sense?
Strong leadership, obviously. Guiding the team. Problem solving is basically a daily task in game dev.
Mhm.
Time management has to be sharp. Adaptability is huge. Things never go exactly to plan, right?
Never. So you need to roll with the punches.
Totally. Attention to detail is critical with so many moving parts. And then you need a solid understanding of the game itself, design principles, but also how it fits in the market.
Marketing awareness, too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And finally, resource management. Budget, schedules, people. Juggling all that effectively.
It's also fascinating. Our source mentions the value of having some basic hard skills, even if you're not, like, coding day to day.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like a basic grasp of programming, maybe, or 3D modeling.
Mm-hmm.
It apparently really helps communication with the dev team. You understand their world better.
Ah, so it builds empathy. It makes conversations easier. I get that.
Exactly. You can grasp their challenges, their constraints a bit more easily.
Okay, so that's the skill set. How do you actually measure if a producer is doing a good job? What does success look like in this role?
Well, success boils down to delivering a quality game on time, within budget,
The big three.
while keeping the team healthy and productive. So it covers a few areas. The delivery itself, obviously, team well-being and morale, and hitting those short-term goals like finishing development sprints.
Right, those short cycles. And I guess just being good at fixing problems when they pop up.
That too. Effective problem solving. And our source actually lists some specific KPIs, key performance indicators that studios might track.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Things like on-time delivery rate, budget adherence, metrics for sprint progress like sprint burn down or velocity tracking.
So tracking the process.
Yeah, but also product quality stuff like the bug rate after launch or user satisfaction scores.
How happy the players are. Makes sense.
And crucially, team health stuff again. Employee satisfaction, turnover rates,
Okay.
stakeholder satisfaction, keeping the bosses happy, risk mitigation, success rate. And I thought this was cool. They use something called MEH.
MEH. What's that?
It stands for reducing routine manual labor. Basically, a way to measure and improve efficiency by cutting down tedious tasks.
Huh. That's a pretty comprehensive way to look at success. So flipping that, what's the absolute worst trait a producer can have? The biggest red flag?
According to the source, an inflated ego.
Ego. How so?
Thinking your opinion is the only one that matters or always needing validation. It just creates a toxic environment. Producers need to be about service, support, empowering the team, not dividing it.
That makes total sense. The role is about enabling others, fundamentally. Any other big negative traits to watch out for?
Yeah, a lack of flexibility is bad. And not being able to think creatively to solve problems. Game dev is unpredictable. You need to be agile.
Resourceful.
Exactly. And they also stress that you need to be a self-starter. The role is often quite self-organized. You need to figure out how to hit those long-term goals yourself.
It really sounds like hands-on experience is key for developing all this. So where does formal education fit in? Do you need a specific degree?
Interestingly, our source kind of downplays needing a formal degree, especially if you already have some relevant work experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they really emphasize learning through other means, books, webinars, short courses, and most importantly, just doing it. applying knowledge on actual projects.
Practical application.
Hands-on experience is the best teacher, basically.
That's actually quite encouraging, maybe for people thinking about switching careers into games. Okay, let's talk brass tacks. Money. What's a typical salary range look like?
Well, it varies a lot, Depends on the company's size, location, the type of games, mobile, AAA, indie,
Yeah.
and obviously experience level.
Sure, lots of factors.
But our source gives a general average range, roughly $38,000 to $96,000 per year.
Okay, so quite a wide range, but decent potential for growth.
Definitely. As you gain experience and prove yourself, that earning power can go up significantly.
It certainly sounds like a demanding job, though. Is it generally seen as high pressure?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Our source is very clear about the high-stress nature of it. You're often facing tight deadlines, making quick decisions under pressure.
While trying to keep the team calm and confident.
Exactly. And mistakes, they happen. Complex projects, things go wrong. A good producer needs to own those mistakes, learn from them, and keep things moving forward.
Right. And what about the hours? We always hear about crunch in game development. Is the producer often in the thick of it?
Yeah, that dedication often comes with the territory. Late nights can happen. And it's interesting. While team wins are shared, the producer often takes the main responsibility when things go wrong. But they frame it as a learning opportunity for everyone. You need resilience.
A thick skin and a growth mindset, it sounds like. What does our source say is the single most challenging part of the job? Consistently.
It really seems to come down to that constant balancing act.
Balancing what?
The creative dreams of the team versus the hard realities of deadlines and budgets. It's trying to make the best, most ambitious game possible within those real-world limits. That's the tightrope walk.
The creative versus the practical. And it's not just resources, right? There's a big people element, too.
Huge. Managing all these different personalities, different working styles, creative opinions, keeping everyone motivated, productive, pulling together, that can be incredibly draining emotionally.
Requires serious people skills, high emotional intelligence.
Definitely.
So with all this swirling around, what does a typical day even look like? Is there such a thing?
Our source suggests probably not. No 2 days are the same, which makes sense given how unpredictable game dev can be.
Right. But are there common elements, things that happen most days?
Yet there are threads. The day often kicks off with stand-up meetings, quick check-ins, see where everyone's at, any immediate problems.
Yeah, being the lay of the land.
Exactly. And then it sounds like a huge chunk of the day is just communication, formal meetings, emails, Slack messages, quick chats. It's very people-heavy.
Constantly talking, coordinating.
Absolutely. And beyond that, a lot of time is spent on problem-solving those unexpected issues that always pop up.
Rest.
Planning future work, managing the backlog of tasks, overseeing releases.
And always looking for ways to be more efficient.
Yeah, scouting for new tools or processes that can help the team work smarter.
Speaking of tools, what are the essentials? What software does a producer live in?
Several key types. You've got your project management and task trackers. Things like Jira, Monday.com, Asana, ClickUp are common.
Right, for organizing the work.
Then communication platforms, Slack, Microsoft Teams, that sort of thing, keeping everyone connected. Documentation tools are vital too. Confluence, Notion for keeping information clear and accessible.
Like a shared brain for the project.
Kind of, yeah. And then real-time collaboration tools, especially for remote teams, Google Workspace, Miro for whiteboarding, Zoom for meetings.
Makes sense. Okay, so if someone listening today is thinking, wow, this actually sounds like something I'd be good at or interested in, what advice does our source on retrieving thoughts have for them, for aspiring producers?
Okay, first step, get a broad understanding of how games are actually made, the whole life cycle. Learn through books, articles, courses, whatever works.
Build that foundation.
Right. Then, crucially, get hands-on experience is paramount. Even small personal projects, indie teams. Just start making stuff.
Learn by doing.
Exactly. And finally, network. Talk to people already in the industry. Find mentors if you can. That guidance can be invaluable.
Build connections. Good advice. It really paints a picture of a role that's, well, challenging, requires a unique blend of skills, but sounds incredibly rewarding too.
For the right person, definitely. That mix of organization, creativity, people skills.
So, just to recap then, we've done a real deep dive into the world of the video game producer, thanks to the great insights from Retrieving Thoughts. We've looked at what they do, the skills they need.
The challenges they face, why they do it, how success is measured.
Given the pitfalls like ego, we've got a much clearer picture now of the day-to-day reality, how they act as these, like, critical orchestrators.
Balancing that creative vision with the practical limits,
Yeah.
guiding the whole process from an idea all the way to the player's hands.
Yeah. And, thinking about all those skills, collaboration, planning, managing goals, dealing with constraints, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How could those principles apply outside of games?
Hmm. That's an interesting thought. In other collaborative fields, other creative industries.
Or maybe even projects you, our listener, are involved in. It's definitely something to mull over.
Absolutely. And look, if you want to explore this further, get more insights from our source. Definitely check out Morad Musukayev's blog, Retrieving Thoughts.
Yeah, there's a lot more great stuff over there. We'll put a link straight to it in the description for this deep dive so you can easily find it.
Definitely worth checking out if this topic sparked your interest.